my love without a sound. Now I'm gone and they want me around. I was sitting there watching the city lights bleed into each other like broken promises drowning in neon. Ain't it funny how silence becomes the loudest thing in the room when the noise is gone? Yeah, silence. That thing you thought meant peace until it started echoing the things you were trying to forget. You thought they'd come back, didn't you? Thought maybe if you stayed kind, stayed present, didn't raise your voice, they'd notice. But guess what? They noticed. Oh, they noticed. They just didn't care. That's the punchline, kid. It ain't that they didn't see you. It's that they saw you. All of you. The loyalty, the pain, the sacrifices. The I'll be there even when you spit in my face kind of love. And they chose to walk right past it like it was a street light they didn't need anymore. You were the shelter, the last honest damn thing in a world full of liars wearing perfume and pretending they love deep and they spit on it. You ever seen someone take gold and throw it in the gutter for a pile of plastic? That's you. That's what they did. You kept responding, didn't you? Kept explaining, fixing, softening your tone, lowering your volume, pretending the bleeding inside was just a scratch. But let me ask you something, kid. What did it cost you to keep answering people who stopped hearing you? What did it cost to be present in rooms where you were invisible? You called it love, but it was survival, wasn't it? Survival in a battlefield where only you were fighting. They weren't at war, sweetheart. You were. You were at war with your silence, your worth, your instinct, begging you to walk away. You didn't walk, you stayed. And now look at you, ain't sleeping, can't eat. Waking up with your heart sinking like a body tied to a brick. And the worst part, you still want to prove your worth to people who laughed when you were drowning. People who only remembered you when their lives went cold and suddenly the warmth you gave for free became valuable. But you ain't a vending machine of emotions. You're not some goddamn charity where people check in when they need comfort and disappear when they're whole again. You were a fire and they stood too close, took all your heat and left you to freeze in your own ashes. And still you stood there, quiet, present, bleeding, but standing. That's your curse, ain't it? You love too deep, even when it kills you slow. But let me give you a little truth. You ready? No response, just presence. That was your first mistake. You should have vanished the moment they forgot how to value you. Silence doesn't mean you lost. Silence is power if you know how to use it. Not to beg, not to chase, not to guilt, but to become something unrecognizable, something unapproachable. You ain't supposed to bark back at every insult. You're supposed to disappear and make them wonder why their world suddenly got colder, why the room feels emptier, why the chaos feels heavier. Because you were the balance. You were the damn anchor and they tossed you like driftwood. Ain't people funny? They only miss you when the silence starts talking. When no one picks up the phone, when the door stays closed, when the replies stop coming, they scream, "You've changed." When you finally stop bleeding for them, music, you didn't change. You healed quietly, painfully, desperately. You stitched your own wounds while they danced in someone else's sunlight, thinking your shadow would stay loyal. But now it's your turn. You walk in, say nothing, and let your presence feel like punishment. Let the silence be the scream. Let the calmness carry the storm. You are never weak. You are too strong. Strong enough to carry people who never even thank you for the ride. Strong enough to break silently while everyone thought you were fine. But baby, you ain't fine. You're dangerous now. Because you know the truth. And the truth is, people never cherish presence until it becomes absence. They don't weep for kindness until it becomes cold. They don't fear you until you go silent. Then don't you dare go back. Don't you dare explain again. You gave them that gift already, and they spat on it. You don't owe him a sentence, a breath, not even a blink. From now on, you move in silence, and let them feel the weight of your absence like a coffin on their chest. That's what presence really is. It's not attention. It's gravity. And when it's gone, the whole damn room collapses. Normals sicken. You know what's sick, kid? They don't remember the nights you stayed awake trying to fix what they kept breaking. They don't recall the way you folded your pride like an old love letter just to make peace. You thought they'd see that, huh? Thought one day they'd wake up and finally get it. That you were the one who stayed when it got dark, who held the damn roof up while they set the house on fire. But people like that, they don't see. They consume. They drain. And then when the cup's empty, they say, "It's your fault for not being enough." Ain't that poetic? You give, and somehow it still becomes your crime. You ever sit across from someone who swears they love you, but you feel more alone than when you're actually alone? That's when you know. That's when you really know. They love the idea of you, not the pain in your chest. Not the nights you wanted to die, not the chaos you hide behind those forced smiles. Just the idea, the presence, the comfort, the convenience. They don't love the real you. They love the version that serves them. And the moment you change, the second you stop being the easy option, boom, you're selfish, cold, distant. They don't realize you became distant the moment you realized you were alone all along. But you still stood there, didn't you? Like a goddamn statue in a storm. Waiting, hoping, praying in silence that maybe your presence would scream louder than your words ever could. You didn't want to fight. You didn't want to beg. You just wanted to be seen. Not for what you do, but for who you are. But that's the tragedy of people like you. You give your soul to ones who don't even know how to hold hands without dropping you. And then when you go quiet, when you stop showing up, suddenly they realize the silence has teeth, sharp ones, ones that bite deeper than any word ever could. The irony, huh? You become mysterious when you stop talking. You become cold when you stop saving them. You become heartless when you finally guard your damn heart. That's when the shift happens. That's when your silence turns into their punishment. Because now they have to live with what they lost. And not just a person. They lost someone who would have died for them. Someone who loved in ways this world ain't even worthy of anymore. Someone who gave a damn in a world where no one does. But listen close, because this is where it gets real. You don't get revenge by talking. You don't win by explaining. You destroy by outgrowing, by building a version of yourself that they can't even recognize. You let the pain become bricks. You let the betrayal become fuel. And you walk so far ahead that they start to feel like a distant memory in a life you barely remember. That's how you win. That's how you make them regret. Every silent tear you cried into your pillow while they slept peacefully with no clue. They were killing you softly. And if they come back, and they will come back, oh, they always do, don't you dare answer. Let your silence greet them at the door. Let your absence echo in their chest like an empty drum. They don't deserve your voice anymore. They don't deserve your love wrapped in explanations. They had it. They broke it. Now they get to watch you rebuild in silence. Stronger, sharper, colder. Not because you're bitter, but because you finally learn that presence means nothing to people who only love you when it's easy. You were the calm in the storm, the hand that wiped their tears, the heart that held theirs together when they were falling apart. And they returned the favor by making you feel like an option, a backup plan, a convenience. But not anymore. Now you show up different. Not with words, but with energy, with distance, with dignity. The kind that says, I'm not angry. I just finally see what you are. That's the power of no response. It leaves him wondering, doubting, begging, while you rise slowly, silently, until the same ones who hurt you have to watch your glow from behind locked doors. Not. You ever seen someone panic in a room that used to feel like home just 'cause your energy ain't there no more? That's what silence does. It don't announce itself. It don't knock. It just shows up in the space where your voice used to live. And suddenly, they start feeling the cold, start wondering why the air feels heavier. Start scrolling through old messages, hoping to find some hint of comfort. But there's nothing there. Just old words from a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. You were the warmth in that room, the heartbeat, the rhythm. And they never noticed until the rhythm stopped. You didn't just stop talking. No, you stopped explaining. You stopped justifying your pain to people who called you dramatic for feeling too deep. You stopped showing up for people who only noticed your worth when the world turned its back on them. And now they sit in rooms surrounded by noise, but still feel haunted by your absence. Because your silence wasn't empty. It was loud. It was a scream with no sound. And that's what breaks them. Not the words you said, but the ones you never said. And let's be honest, some people didn't walk away from you. They lost you. There's a difference. People walk away from things they don't want. But losing you, that wasn't their choice. That was the consequence, the punishment, the karma. You were never something they could replace. You were the rarest kind of real. The type that listens without judging, loves without calculating, stays when it's ugly, broken, silent. And they threw it away for what a thrill, a distraction, a louder voice that didn't love half as deep. Let them have it. Let them sip from the cup they poured for themselves. Because someday, that cup's going to taste like regret. But I ain't just here to make you feel sad, kid. I'm here to light that fire. Because sadness without purpose becomes poison. But sadness with purpose, that's fuel. That's rage converted into motion. That's heartbreak turned into strategy. That's when the silent one stops praying for a reply and starts building an empire in the dark. Quietly, coldly, without mercy. And when you walk into a room one day dressed in peace, dressed in power, with not a single trace of that pain showing, they'll feel it. Oh, they'll feel it. Not your anger, not your words, but your evolution. The kind that says, I ain't here to be heard. I'm here to be felt. You thought your presence was a gift. It was. But it's your absence that teaches, that hurts, that educates. Because people don't listen when you speak anymore. They listen when you vanish. When your support stops showing up. When your name don't light up their phone. When the always available becomes a ghost. That's when the lessons begin. And by then it's too late. Because you ain't sitting around waiting to be appreciated anymore. You too busy turning your scars into armor, your silence into power, your solitude into peace. You ain't chasing no one. You ain't explaining no more. You're watching them fall apart, trying to figure out how they lost someone who would have gone to war for him. It's funny. They'll start posting sad songs, start talking about loyalty like they invented it, start dropping quotes about losing real ones like they weren't the reason the real ones left. And you'll be gone, not bitter, not broken, just beyond reach. That's your revenge. That's your victory. You became untouchable by walking away. And now they got to deal with that. The weight of their choices, the silence of your phone, the chill in their chest, every time they remember you ain't coming back. You gave them everything, and they treated it like it was nothing. You were solid, always there, always loyal, and they mistook that for weakness. You kept showing up even when your soul was tired, even when their words cut you down. And now you're the villain in their story just because you stopped bleeding for them. Funny how that works. You gave them silence not because you had nothing to say, but because they stopped deserving your voice. You became quiet, and suddenly the silence started screaming louder than your presence ever did. See, people don't value what's always available. They love the chase, not the catch. And you were the catch they didn't know how to hold. They loved how you made them feel, not who you were. You gave peace, so they brought chaos. You gave consistency, and they craved drama. And the second you started loving yourself more than you loved their damage, they called you distant. But you weren't distant. You were done. Done explaining, done waiting, done hoping they'd see your worth without needing to lose you. You don't owe them a reaction. Let your silence do the damage. Let it echo in rooms you no longer enter. Let it weigh on their chest when your name doesn't light up their screen. The absence of your voice will haunt them louder than any words you could have spoken. Because you weren't noise, you were presence, a rare kind. And now that presence is gone, replaced with cold, clean distance. That's power. Not anger, not revenge, just disappearance. Music. They'll try to spin it, say you change, say you stop caring. But deep down, they know. They know you stayed far longer than you should have. You cared when it hurt. You loved when it was lonely. And now that you're gone, they're finally listening. But there's nothing left to say. You've said it all with your silence. Let them feel what it's like to lose someone who never would have left if they just shown up. Shh. They used to think you were just there. Like furniture, like background music. Always available, always calm. Always picking up when they needed to dump their storms on someone else's sky. You weren't a person to them. You were a service. Music. And when you stopped functioning the way they liked, suddenly you were the problem. Suddenly you were too cold, too quiet, too distant. But what they never realized is that you weren't being distant. You were being done. You didn't walk out for revenge. You vanished for survival because staying was killing you. Silently, and they didn't even notice. But now they notice. Now that the phone don't ring. Now that your energy don't show up when they fall apart again. Now that they're alone with their own echoes, they miss the sound of your silence. How peaceful it felt. How healing it was. And the worst part, they'll never admit it. They'll tell people you switched up, that you went cold. They won't say I took them for granted. They won't say I drained them dry. No, they'll rewrite the whole story to protect their ego, not realizing the ending was written by your absence. You didn't disappear to hurt them. You disappeared because they refused to see you. You don't need to post your pain. You don't need to speak it out loud. The glow that's coming from your healing will say everything. The silence you hold now is not weakness. It's a weapon, a warning, a wall. You speak through presence now, not through reaction. Edgy, I'm just guessing whatever you study, Martin, I'm sure there are. I'm like Ken SL. I'm getting crazy. I'll bring back money without went over there forever with us. But strange women, if they aren't good luck, here and video just missing a work, and looking so I and the world lonely, that I rail me on there for your eyes, and burnless first plane, with his limbs, all they are, and let him sit with it, let them choke on the memories they tried to bury. Let them scroll back through old photos, and feel that gut punch when they realize you were real. You were the thing they said they wanted until they had it. You didn't just love them. You showed up. You listened when nobody else did. You stood there when everything else fell apart, and they called it ordinary. Huh? Now they're looking for that same loyalty and empty people with pretty faces, and all they find is noise. But you stayed solid. You turned the silence into something sacred. You made peace with walking alone, and now your silence isn't empty. It's full. Full of lessons, power, clarity. You ain't bitter. You ain't broken. You're just unavailable. Not because you're punishing them, but because you finally learned to protect your own damn soul. And when they try to come back, and oh, they will, just look at them. Don't speak. Don't rage. Don't explain. Just let your eyes say you had me and you lost me. Simple as that. They thought your silence meant weakness. That you were just sitting there waiting like a fool, still hoping they'd come around. But what they missed, what they never even imagined, was that your silence wasn't waiting, it was working. while they were off messing around, acting like you'd always be there. You were shape-shifting. You were bleeding quietly, rebuilding painfully, and becoming unreachable. That silence that wasn't a pause. It was a goodbye with no door slam, no scream, no drama. You just left mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And when your body followed, they finally realized you were never coming back. That's what makes it hurt. You didn't fight. You didn't argue. You didn't send long texts or beg for clarity. Nah, you went ghost. And when the drama ended, when the game stopped being fun, when they looked around and found nothing left to break, music, that's when they missed you. Music. That's when your silence showed its teeth. Because there's nothing more terrifying than being ignored by the one who used to carry you, not help you, carry you. When they think back on every moment you showed up, every time you swallowed your pain to hold theirs, every damn sacrifice you made quietly. It hits different now because now they know they lost something real. Music. You don't get that kind of peace twice. You don't stumble into someone who understands your silence, who hears your pain in your eyes, who gives without keeping score. That's once-in-a-lifetime energy. And they treated it like a convenience store. In, out, use, leave. But love, real love, doesn't come with receipts. It comes with presence. And yours was priceless. Music, and now it's gone. That's the kind of silence that breaks egos, that unravels fake pride, that makes people wake up in cold sweats, wondering how they messed it up so bad and if it's too late to fix it. Spoiler, it is. And now the table's turned. Huh? Now they want closure. Now they want a conversation. But closure ain't owed. It's earned. And they never earned it. They earned your silence. They earned your absence. And the only thing they get now is distance. Because you don't hand explanations to people who made you feel like a burden. You don't pour clarity into cups that shattered when you needed them whole. You gave everything, and they treated it like background noise. Now they got to live with the silence every single day. You see, the most powerful people aren't the loudest. They're the ones who stop explaining and start moving. You ain't just a ghost to them now. You're a lesson, a heavy one. One they'll keep running into every time they try to replace what they lost. And they will try. But nothing will sound like your laugh. Nothing will feel like your calm. Nothing will match the way your presence made the world softer. They'll look for it in strangers and cheap thrills. But you became untouchable the moment you stopped begging to be understood. Now they sit in silence, scrolling through old memories like crime scenes, wondering where and all went wrong. But deep down, they know. They know exactly when you started to fade. It wasn't one moment. It was a slow death. Every time they dismissed your feelings, every time they acted like you were too much, every time you showed up for them when they wouldn't do the same for you, it chipped at you little by little until there was nothing left to give. And the day you went quiet, that was the day the version of you they loved died. They just didn't hear the funeral bells because they were too busy listening to their own noise. But they hear it now, don't they? That silence rings louder than every excuse they ever gave. And the irony, they'd beg for your noise now. Your arguments, your fire, even your pain. Anything but the void you left. That calm, brutal void. Because silence, when it comes from someone who used to pour their soul into every conversation, it's not quiet. It's catastrophic. It's the loudest punishment you can give someone who only appreciated your voice when you were hurting. And now, you're not hurting. Now you're healed. No, forget that. Now you're healed. But not soft. Not the way you used to be. Now you're steel. Now you're cold in all the places they used to burn. They want to come back. You'll feel it. You'll see it. The hey stranger messages, the guilt-ridden nostalgia, the sudden I miss us texts that show up after midnight. But don't fall for it. That ain't love. It's hunger. Hunger for comfort they lost. Hunger for stability they didn't deserve. They don't miss you. They miss the version of themselves that you made better. They miss the way you loved them, the way you made life easier, not the way they treated you. And if you go back, you're just walking into a rerun of your own downfall. Same show, different season, still no happy ending. You gave everything, and now you give nothing. Not because you're bitter, but because you finally understand the cost. You bled for people who wouldn't hand you a damn tissue. You drowned in your own loyalty while they surfed across your waves like tourists. And when you sank, they didn't even notice. So now you swim alone. Not because you're cold, but because you learned that not everyone deserves a response. Some people only deserve your disappearance. And the more they wonder where you went, the more power you gain. You ain't just gone, you're legendary now. A story they'll tell in pieces, never admitting they were the villain. They'll say you changed. They'll say you switched. But you know the truth. You just woke up. You saw the difference between being loved and being used. And the moment that truth hits your chest, boom, you went silent. No fight, no scream, just gone. And that silence, it'll echo in their heads for years. It'll show up in their next relationship, in the quiet moments when they realize no one ever loved them like you did, and no one ever will. Normal. They don't realize it yet, but the silence you left behind is a mirror, and every time they stand in it, all they'll see is their own reflection. Unfiltered, unforgiven, unhealed. See, your presence used to cover that up. You were the shield, the light, the one that made even their ugliness feel like art. You softened the blow of their own damage. You made their demons feel tolerable. But now they're alone with those demons. No more comfort. No more I understand. Just them and that empty room you used to light up. That's what they never thought would happen. They thought you'd be there forever, clapping for their efforts, fixing their mass, forgiving their forgetfulness. But even loyalty has limits. Even hearts made of gold rust, when exposed to neglect long enough. They'll try to distract themselves. New people, new faces, new chaos. But you ain't replaceable because you didn't just show love. You were love. You loved raw, honest, even when it hurt. You stayed when it burned. And that kind of presence doesn't come twice. That kind of presence haunts. And now it's haunting them. Every laugh they hear that sounds like yours. Every kindness they receive that doesn't go as deep. Every fake smile they get from people who only care on the surface. That's your ghost. Not the kind that scares them in the dark, but the kind that reminds them what they lost in the light. But you're not looking back. You've seen too much now. You've tasted what it feels like to be drained, and you finally understand love without reciprocity is just slow destruction. You can't pour into others while you're running on empty. And silence, it taught you that. It became your boundary, your language, your armor. No more justifying your worth to people who needed your energy, but not your soul. No more begging to be seen in rooms you lit up just by existing. They had you. They had you, and they threw it away like a cigarette butt, only to realize later it was the last flame they had. Now look, they're writing sad quotes, posting about real ones. But where were they when you needed the bare minimum? Where were they when your heart was screaming through a smile? Music. They ain't sad 'cause they hurt you. They're sad 'cause they lost access to you, to your light, to your loyalty. And now they're left with replicas, half-hearted connections that don't go deeper than a good morning text. And that ache they feel, that ain't heartbreak. That's memory. That's regret. The kind that don't go away. The kind that keeps them up at night, wondering how they managed to lose someone who asked for nothing but honesty. And you ain't bitter. You're just clear on who you are, clear on what you bring, and crystal clear on who's never allowed to stand beside you again. No more explanations. No more overthinking. If they didn't see you then, they don't deserve to hear from you now. Let the silence say what your mouth no longer has time for. Let it echo through every fake smile they wear, every conversation that lacks depth, every "are you okay?" That doesn't come from someone who truly cares. They never expected your silence to be permanent. They thought it was just one of your phases, like you'd eventually come back, arms open, heart bleeding, ready to fix what they kept breaking. But something changed in you this time, didn't it? This wasn't silence out of hurt. This was silence out of understanding. You understood they were never going to change. You understood no matter how many times you forgave, no matter how many chances you handed over like candy, they were only ever going to take more. You finally saw the truth. They liked the old you, not because you were good, but because you were easy. Easy to manipulate, easy to lean on, easy to ignore. But silence made you difficult. It made you unpredictable. And that terrified them. You see, people don't fear the ones who scream. They fear the ones who go quiet. Because when someone like you, who used to pour every drop of love, every second of time, every breath of loyalty, suddenly stops talking, that's not indifference. That's evolution. That's the sound of a soul that's done explaining. And now they walk around acting confused. What happened? They ask like they didn't hear every crack in your voice, like they didn't see the disappointment in your eyes, like they didn't feel your energy slowly dimming. But they did. They just ignored it. They thought you were bluffing until one day you weren't there anymore. Now they're looking for you and people who ain't built like you. They're searching for your calm in chaos, your warmth in cold arms, your loyalty and temporary attention. Music, but it's gone. You were the lighthouse in their storm, and they sailed right past you, chasing fireworks that burned out in seconds. And now they want your light again, but the coast is closed. And that's what hurts the most. Not just that you left, but that you left quietly. No goodbye, no closure, just absence. The kind that wraps around their neck when they're alone and squeezes tighter every time they remember they could have had forever and traded it for a moment. And the best part, you didn't have to say a damn thing. You didn't have to argue. You didn't have to defend yourself to people who made you feel guilty for caring. You just stopped showing up. You stopped replying. You stopped making excuses for why they couldn't love you right. And that silence, it became the loudest truth they've ever heard. Because in that silence lives every broken promise, every ignored message. Every time you cried and they rolled their eyes. It all lives there now in the void, in the distance, and they feel it. That's your victory, not revenge, not drama, just silence. The kind that stings in the places they swore they'd never feel. You became the story they don't talk about, the ghost that visits in stillness. And no matter how loud the world gets, no matter who they're with or what they chase next, they'll always hear it. That silence, that stillness, that Missy. They thought your silence was a weakness, a pause, a bruise that would heal with a little attention. But silence, when it comes from someone who used to give their all, isn't a weakness. It's a weapon. It's the end of the story they never thought would finish. Music. You were the chapter they kept rereading without ever understanding the meaning. And now the book's closed. You ain't flipping back a single page. And that scares them because you are the one who always stayed. Through disrespect, through indifference, through nights where your heart screamed but your mouth stayed shut. You stayed, and they took that as confirmation that you always would. You didn't go silent to punish them. You went silent to protect yourself. You finally realized you were dying in places you were trying to save. You kept lighting yourself on fire to warm people who would have watched you burn. And the day you stopped, the day you stepped back, breathed deep, and didn't say a word, that was the day you became powerful. Not loud, not violent, just gone emotionally, spiritually, energetically. And now they sit with that ghost, not the haunting kind, the kind that reminds them what they had and what they'll never have again. Let them drown in that. Let them sit in their own silence, because that's where truth lives. Not in the arguments, not in the explanations, but in the space where your voice used to be. That space, that's the mirror they now stare into. And what they see ain't you. It's the reflection of someone who ruined the very thing they once prayed for. You were the answered prayer they didn't know how to handle. And now you're the silence they can't forget. You've moved different now. You walk different. You sleep better. Not because it doesn't still hurt, but because you finally stopped giving CPR to what was already dead. You stopped trying to save connections that only existed because you refused to let go. Now that you've let go, you've leveled up quietly, with grace, with distance, with eyes that see through people. You're no longer trying to be understood. You are the understanding. You don't chase peace now. You are peace. The kind they'll never touch again.